What do you get when you mix Matt Groening and Netflix? Hopefully something worth watching. With only 4 episodes to save itself, will Disenchantment survive? Let's find out. When Groening signed a deal with the streaming behemoth to debut his then new series to a worldwide audience a year ago, many salivated. The Simpsons, despite its modern reception, is still lauded as a timeless classic after 30 years on the air, whilst Futurama is heralded on similar footing for its expansive satirical and emotional weight before and after its protracted demise. So to witness something new from a lauded auteur of American TV animation was something for audiences to celebrate and analyse equally with vigour, as they were expecting something of similar quality to what came before it to appear right before their eyes, which is quite a lofty expectation to have. However, many seem to have forgotten something quite important amongst the hype to consider. Disenchantment is Groening's first brand new show since Futurama aired in 1999. That is 19 years! 19 years! Nearly 2 whole decades have passed. That is a long time for something new to appear from someone so well regarded. As a result, the main question surrounding it was whether Groening's ability for grounding characters, his trademark art style, and the humour that writers had bled into his prior work over the years had been able to create something for modern audiences that was actually of some quality. Was it going to hit the right note, or was it going to be nostalgic cannon fodder bringing nothing new to the table? I was hoping it would be something new while retaining some of the charm of his prior work, because without it, it would not have been a Groening show. And after a long time of waiting, it was time to put it to the fabled 4-episode test to see if it came out alive. So let's see how its results fared. With the weight of time and expectation on Disenchantment's shoulders, it was difficult to see it managing to keep its head above water, especially as comparisons to its older brethren would be apparent from the outset. I mean, when you look at it with a quick glance, some aspects are quite similar indeed. It retained Futurama's distinct visual design as it was made by Rough Draft Studios, the Korean guys behind Futurama, and utilised familiar names from that Space Age series in John DiMaggio, Maurice LaMarche, Tress MacNeille, and Billy West in its main and supporting roles. It also wanted to use its time to satirise a period in history, as well as telling a compelling story around its episodic frame. Given that you have the morally fractured and corrupt medieval period and unlimited potential for abstract constructs to be formed, much like Futurama did in bending the future and affecting the vision of the past, i.e. the present day at the time of its release, you have a decent amount of potential to reap based entirely on echoing that concept with a different angle formed with this newly ventured time period. On that subject, Groening seems to like the idea of sticking his world and stories within specific socio-political and class molds. The Simpsons are middle class in the present, Futurama is working class in the future, and Disenchantment is technically upper class in the Dark Ages. The Simpsons remained grounded in its period, Futurama could be aloof of what it could do as a result, so what would Disenchantment do? Well, it attempted to be like its main protagonist and rebel against the status quo, only to hammer its sterile and resolute vitriol into the ground, doing little else, to be perfectly honest with you. The long introductory split 2-parter attempted to throw the cats amongst the pigeons and roll against type, but it couldn't retain its footing from there, falling spectacularly, albeit, much like the characters within said episodes, doing so without much of an impact being made. The trailer gave off the impression of the series being a wild goose chase from the start, of Bean escaping her role as a princess with the help of some magical friends, making an adventure out of it, as it inverts the Princess Bride somewhat, seeing the royal court stopping her, or at least attempting to, as she scours the world to find her one true love and a purpose in her life. Now that would have been a story worth sitting through, and while the 2-parter starter gives you some inkling of that potentially happening, it ends by throwing a wrench into proceedings by giving Bean what she wants, but then grabbing her by the and restricting her for the sake of future episode plots. What stems from there is a mundane and senselessly foreshadowable mismatch of cliched rebellious teenage problems mixed in with medieval practices and responses to them that are a shallow attempt at making them seem interesting. It felt dated and boring quite quickly, which was not what I was expecting or wanted to feel going into it. From the beginning, especially in regards to that two-parter, it protracts in stretching out its runtime to obscene lengths, filling in all the exposition and world-building it can, so the episodes that follow on from it that are necessarily and decently shorter do not have to do the same, which defeats the point of a show like this and what came before it in Groening's lineage. Why have such an expansive world if you're not going to bother with utilising much of it going forward? Outside of some sight gags and the occasional bit of humour, it was wasted, and when it was combined with some surprisingly forced social commentary through its cast and those aforementioned gags, the episodes just ticked on by at a slow, uninteresting and meandering pace, making them feel ever more tired and lackluster. It didn't give me a chance to take it all in, as it stuck to its linear course and barely attempted to stray from it at any point. Despite the weight of the situation looming over Bean's head, none of the drama it created felt important or desperate enough for me to emotionally invest in it, while a laugh could hardly be found as the humour felt hammed up and pressured to fit in with the aloof setting it resided in. As a result, it made the two teenage slice-of-life plots that came after this bloated yet underbaked two-parter feel decidedly more underwhelming in comparison to the sprawling sense of anarchy that was marginally offered beforehand. To make the problem even worse, character interactions only seem to exist to push the plot along its noted predictable path. Lucy's position as Bean's conniving and scheming demon only allowed the conflict of the story to be thrown into motion, while Elfo's naive demeanour was a lovely contrast at first. It quickly lost its sharpness over time as he offered almost nothing to the grand scheme of things, as King Zog's, absurd, selfish, draconian sensibilities followed similar suit, irking more than it needed to, as his role as the main antagonist decidedly floundered, as it honestly just didn't go anywhere. And, I'm already beating a dead horse, but I might as well do it. I found myself barely laughing at anything this show offered up, and this is supposed to be a goddamn comedy, so when I did, it was a mighty shock. Hell, the only time I properly lost it was during one particular moment in the third episode, which you can see without audio or context on screen. If it takes nearly 3 episodes to register some emotion out of me, then we have a problem, as my sense of polite consideration bled away for apathy to take its place, showing just how far this show had already fallen, and I'm not even done yet. Furthermore, that sense of irritated derision only got worse as the lamentable action and transparent score barely did anything to lift the spirits, while its weak and purposely bleak colour palette was fitting of the scenery, but it didn't get much of a chance to showcase the wildly drawn architecture and make it come to some form of life. Except when it was utilised for a few good establishing shots, of course. That's some nice camera work right there. This meant that the lone aspect of visual delights and difference stemmed from the happy little elves' candy-filled kingdom of never-ending happiness. And while it looks cute and cuddly, please, for the love of God, kill me with that Twizzler noose while you're ahead so I don't have to go through with this anymore. Now don't get me wrong, it looks polished and well-drawn a world, but when little of it stands out in a series as apparently fantastical as this, you start asking questions as to where most of the budget went. Actually, you don't, as it's pretty darn obvious. Those poor South Koreans, I hope they were paid well. Thankfully and mercifully, I would be at my wit's end if the lone exceptional ingredient to this negative slurry was not present, as the voice acting more than held its own to make the shallow and one-dimensional characters have something to offer. Abby Jacobson's lead role as Bean was as well delivered and lively as you could get, while the surprise of hearing Matt Berry of IT Crowd fame as Prince Merkimer was delightful, while Eric Andre's devilish performance as Lucy did more than enough to elevate him from the failings the character laid out before me, showing that he enjoyed voicing him a hell of a lot. Seriously, if you end up watching this back, listen to how Eric Andre delivers those words, it's just so damn good. Finally, Lucy Montgomery's underrated turn as Bunty, Bean's loyal assistant and maid, was incredibly funny in her short periods on screen, which further notifies and highlights just how absent the humour was when a side character got more laughs than almost the entire cast combined. However, while their performances are commendable, the writing that they are spouting and performing does not reflect it. As I've already mentioned, it rarely hit the mark, and when it did, it came at moments which weren't imperative to the story, making them feel as forgettable as honestly something could be. Which is quite sad when you think about it, as the free-spirited Bean could have been something amazing if she wasn't pigeonholed and repeatedly restricted to fill the role of a teenager leaving her room just despite her father's orders. She shone brightly against the sea of mostly detestable characters that surrounded her, which was not a difficult task when all things are considered, proving to be the lone reason why I'd even want to continue watching this. But thanks to what the writing had done, it compounded the dated feeling this had from the start, as while she was a strong, independent female character, she never got the ability to showcase that regularly enough with much venom without being pulled back, which really is the final nail in this show's coffin. Now, when all has been said and done, I went in with a clear mind, hoping to like this because Groening's work has brought me a lot of laughs and good memories over the years, but I left this feeling frustrated and disappointed. It came across as a nostalgic sugar cube to add to a loose and very tepid tea in the hope of sprucing it up, but only making it taste bitter the more it was mixed in. The show had an identity crisis as it wanted to be taken seriously, like a lot of Netflix fare wants to, but also had to generate some laughs due to it being a comedy first and foremost. The balance was never found, meaning tone-wise, it flopped hard. The jokes were executed in a way that rarely allowed them to work, as the lackluster timing and pacing just made everything fall apart around it, while by the time I reached the final episode of this test, I just wanted to focus on something else as predictability set in. I can see that Disenchantment could be something bigger going forward from its initial offerings if it gave itself the room to maneuver, but thanks to how the first 4 episodes kept themselves from exciting or even trying to offer up something of interest, I will gladly disembark from this horse and carriage, retaining some of my dignity, or whatever is left. Sorry, Mr. Groening, while you and your team's efforts were certainly not without some merit, it just wasn't for me. So, without further ado, I must proclaim that Disenchantment has failed the test, becoming the first ever show on this series' history to be bestowed this very dubious honour. Let's hope it's the first of very, very few. I don't want it to become a bad omen of things to come. Is there a cartoon or anime you want me to put to the 4-episode survival test? Remember, this can be new or old. If you do have one, suggest it in the comment section below and you could see a video made on it in the future. These videos come out twice a month, so if you do not want to miss it, hit that subscribe button and click the bell icon to receive notifications. You will not regret it. I have been Freddie Thomas, you've been people watching, this has been the CC Network, and I will see you all next time.